Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast, hosted by Joshua Shaw and Ryan Buckeye.
This is the first guest ever, but this guest, we talk about you all the time. Aaron, you are, I guess, what would you, how would you describe Aaron in one word, Josh? That's my hard-hitting question for you, Shaw.
I was going to say relentless, but I think that's a good word, but I think there's a ton of different words you could probably use for Aaron.
Yeah, he's a savage, but in a good way. I mean, fastest growing supplement company in history. And Aaron, you guys have an awesome video on Redcon1.com. We're not going to dive into the history of Redcon1 because they can go to that video and watch it. But, dude, I mean, it's uber impressive what you've been able to do in such a short period of time. I think Josh and I have talked about this before. The only other brand that we've seen maybe do something similar is Josh when you were at Muscle Farm and kind of what they did quickly. Exceed all expectations, Aaron?
Oh, it definitely exceeded my expectations, 100%. I mean, my thought process initially when Redcon started, I mean, obviously I always want, anything I do, I want to be the best, you know, but, you know, I was realistic in the sense that when Redcon1 was beginning, I thought, because I had just left Blackstone, obviously, and at that time, I owned 35% of Blackstone. So I felt like, well, Blackstone was at the time was doing about $20 million in revenue. And so I figured, well, if I do 35% of that, then I'll be in the same place I would have been anyway. So, I mean, that seemed very like a realistic thing where I thought, you know, a few years I could be doing 7 million or so in sales. I believe that. And so that was really what I was, you know, kind of aspiring towards. So yeah, it went far past the expectations. I think if anybody told you that they expected what has occurred with Redcon and myself, they'd be extremely cocky, you know, very arrogant person to say, oh yeah, this is all going to happen for sure. You know?
Right.
Aaron, I have a random question. Like when you were starting Redcon1, before you came up with that concept, was there a concept before that? Like, was there a name? Did you always settle on Redcon1, or was there another like brand concept that you and maybe Eric or Eduardo were like throwing around and saying, hey, this could work or this could work?
A little bit, you know, very little of that actually, because it happened so fast. Because I left Blackstone and Redcon1 really started going only a few days after. So it was only like a few days till the idea started, you know, kind of forming. But I have some funny, very early labels and logos that I'll have to post at some point where people, if I showed you like our first, because we had this designer in Brazil, a very nice guy, who I gave him the concept, and he came back with these horrendous labels with like zombie soldiers on the cover, on the label with like guns and like, and if I show you, you'd be like, holy shit. If I would have went with this, none of this we wouldn't be here talking. But we had some early ones that were pretty bad. And initially we were looking at the name DEFCON or DEFCON Labs or some shit like that. That was like the very initial wording. But I mean, it was initial in the sense that there's no way we were going to go with that. It was like almost like a placeholder till we found something that would seem appropriate. But yeah, so it was very little concepts thrown around because it happened so quickly, you know.
How long before you think somebody's going to have zombie soldiers on their labels now?
I'm surprised if nobody does. I mean, we got the killer clowns and shit on there, so
yeah,
that's not that far away.
We'd spend a whole podcast talking about that. $100 million, Aaron. I mean, I think last year you guys, I know you're very transparent about what you guys do in terms of revenue. And I know recently you just posted that you had one of your largest and best months ever on Amazon, or best months, I think, in the history of Redcon1, right? Wasn't July like the best? COVID, 2020, a lot of people want to throw it out the window, but you guys literally just had your best month ever. How were you able to do that?
It was our second best month in the company history. It was our best month on Amazon.
What do you think drove that?
Yeah. So I think that one cool thing that I'm very proud of is that we didn't have to fire anybody during COVID. You know, because a lot of people, and that's not saying that it's bad that you do, because I have lots of friends, you know, that have had to. I was just speaking to, you know, Jeff Compton from Europa. The business changed so dramatically that it's either he needs to cut staff or the whole business shuts down. So I'm just proud that we didn't have to. During the entire COVID, the business was profitable all the entire time. So it speaks to how great the business is that we've been able to be profitable, not have to fire anybody. And I think the reason why last month was the second best month ever is because I think that the brand would have been much higher. I mean, I can't even imagine where we would have been if COVID hadn't happened. So I think that the momentum was already there and was already building. And I think another big thing is we really, focused even more strongly on direct to consumer. And so we pumped up those numbers. And since COVID, happened, our direct to consumer has steadily went up every month over month. And Amazon, I kind of include in direct to consumer.
Right.
So, yeah.
Can you talk about that in terms of the healthy balance between D2C, retail, your other online retailers? Because I think that's, people I think look at Redcon's like, how do they do it? How are they able to be so heavy on direct to consumer, but also be successful in retail, in brick and mortar? Because I think, Josh, you get this question a lot too. People will call us like, what are they doing down in Boca? Like, what is Redcon doing? Like, what's their proprietary formula? I mean, outside of being relentless, like Josh said, I mean, how do you balance the two so that way you're not pissing off your retailer, but you're able to do, the best of both worlds?
Well, it's funny because me and Josh actually shot a video and he was here about channel conflict. And that is a question that I get a lot. And I think that first off, this whole experience, the whole COVID, thing has definitely taught people how important direct to consumer is, that channel is number one. And I can tell you, you guys probably know this already, but people that when they're interested in businesses in general, purchasing a business, investing, in general, across the board, they want to know what's your direct to consumer numbers. How are you doing? How are you collecting customer data? How much does it cost to acquire a customer? These are the important numbers. And now, if it was important before, now it's super important because you got companies that were killing it. I mean, some that were, I don't want to say killing it, but like a Cellucor was doing great. It was certainly, they made, I think Josh just talked about this, the energy drink going in that direction. Maybe they made some missteps in that direction and how they did it and stuff. But I would say that company NutriBullet was a very healthy company. And I think that they're in a much worse situation because they didn't focus at all on direct to consumer. And so I know that, it's tough. Like we owed $1.4 million from the bankruptcy of GNC, money that we'll never get back. I mean, it's basically written off at this point. Cellucor lost $5 million. So it's like, man, that is, 1.4 hurt. I can't even imagine 5. Most companies wouldn't, they have to be strong to survive that. For us, channel conflict doesn't happen a lot because we created such a strong direct to consumer brand initially that they really can't say much. So we've had some stuff where retailers, especially initially, would be like, well, why are you're targeting our customers to your website? And I've had to explain to them, we're spending money on digital marketing to make the brand popular, which is going to in turn help people come into your store and be aware of Redcon1 or come into your store looking for it because that's a different consumer. For example, I'll never walk into a store and buy almost anything,
right?
But a lot of people want to walk into the store and get their thing right then and there. And if you're providing value to the customer with advice and, talking to them about what products and providing value to the customer, if you're a good store, you're going to do fine because of that. So we initially had somewhere I had to explain that, where I'm like, hey man, I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on digital marketing, but it's, even though, they're coming to our site, that's the idea. Plenty of them are seeing it or hearing about it or talking about it or seeing the shirts and are going to stores and buying it. So that was the initial thing. But now we did it in it kind of happened the right way. So now when you get a Vitamin Shop, who we love, I love those guys over there. They don't even try. They won't even say like, hey, you need to the price on the deal you're doing this weekend is too aggressive. They don't even say that kind of thing because they know I'll just be like, sorry.
Yeah.
Or, so we're in a position of strength where there's really no leverage on their side at all anymore. Where if they said we don't like it, they know I'm just going to be like, oh, I'm sorry. You feel like that. It's kind of certainly not screw you because like I said, that's not the way that we do business. But ultimately, we're not going to change the way we do business for a retailer. Even I don't know if I've even talked about it yet, but we'll be in Walmart in October on the shelves in Walmart. And I wouldn't change. When we met with Walmart, we went to Bentonville. It was a weird meeting because I was really worried that they were going to say, hey, we can't take Total War, for example, as is. It needs to be a cheaper formula or it needs to be something, something different. And I would have said no. And I was very happy and relieved that they believe Walmart's ready for a premium brand that doesn't have to lower the price, you don't have to change the formula, you don't have to alter anything about it. Because I think that even with the Walmart, it would have been really tough to water down the products, because that would change what the brand's even about. But yeah, so even with the Walmart, we were prepared to say no and walk away if it didn't fit with the rest of the business.
Yeah, the Walmart, I guess just food, drug, mass, convenience, I think is adapting and just evolving, especially when they kind of smell blood in the water with GNC and Vitamin Shop with the weakness in that, and saying, hey, there's a lot of consumers that are looking to purchase products in different channels. We now need to offer merchandising that matches the expectation of the consumer. It can no longer be like this watered down effect. And I think that you guys are going to really spearhead that in Walmart. I think that's going to bring that category of merchandising to be much stronger. And then I think overall, it just matures our industry even further. For us to be in those stores and also make an impact in those stores would be huge, and not having to complicate your business even further by creating one-off SKUs and not being able then to liquidate those SKUs after things happen. It helps you then in your business be able to support it much easier. You mentioned something around the like convenience in terms of like energy drinks, C4, all that type of stuff. In terms of like mobility of individuals, a lot of those things got hurt because of COVID. And I wanted to ask you around kind of like a challenge or I guess like a risk that became apparent because of COVID in terms of your business, that you're now looking at it and saying like, well, we need to hedge against this in the future.
Oh, well, definitely the bankruptcy thing is definitely one where I'd never been involved in anything like that before. And honestly, I didn't really know the rules of how bankruptcies work and what it means for vendors, and how absolutely crazy it is that a business can basically be like, yeah, we did a shitty job running this, and like, yeah, we have no money to pay you guys, so we need to get like a do-over. And basically they basically can do that, because obviously for me, if things don't work out for me personally, or you guys, your credit cards, you don't get a do-over. You have to, your bankruptcy that's it. You're not back to normal where you're back in business. So if Redcon1 has a bankruptcy, it's over. That's it. We're gone, right? But for GNC, they're able to be like, we have no money, we can't pay any of you guys anymore, and we're still going to be open. All the doors are open, and we still want to do business with you. We still want to partner strong with Redcon. We're just not going to pay you the money we owe you. And like, that's a thing that's like, okay. So that was a learning experience for me. And so thinking about who you give terms to, what kind of terms you let people have, and what duration or what size do you go. So, obviously if you're doing better, more and more money is on the street all the time. So you have, for us, we're owed like $8 million right now. So it's $8 million that's on terms. If we do better, we'll be owed more and more money. And so you have to be, I think for me, seeing what happened with GNC has made me more cognizant of the fact that there's so much money out on the street. What's the health of these other businesses like? And if they're not so good, when do you say, hey, I can't keep going further and further? Because you don't want to do that, right? Just because like the business part of you says, well, I don't want to limit how much money. I don't want them to not do business with me because I'm not extending them. But when something like the GNC thing happens, it definitely has made me look at all the other businesses and say, well, how far do I really want to go with X relationship? Do I want to let it be millions of dollars that could potentially be lost? So that's the one thing that struck us the most over here, because it's something that I wasn't expecting.
I'm sitting here thinking, Josh and I were talking the other day, it's like, I just paid a credit card bill for like $32,000 for my business, and I thought that was a lot of money. I can't imagine $1.4 million just not coming into the bank account. We were talking about direct-to-consumer before, Aaron, and you mentioned the investability, or somebody's looking to acquire the company. They're going to look at how much data you own. And Josh and I just recently talked about data being extremely important in the health and wellness world. And I would say, Redcon, you're a very much data-driven business. I've seen some of your back-end stuff. It's highly impressive what you guys have back there. I just got off a call with Ryan about what you guys are doing in terms of the web platform and the personalization experience that you're going to provide for your consumers. Data. How important? I mean, is that one of the biggest keys for you guys in terms of your growth and how you're able to get to that $100 million mark?
Yeah, well, knowing who your consumer is and being able to target future consumers intelligently, spend money profitably, so your return on your investment is big. Obviously, like you mentioned Ryan, so Ryan and the team right now are working on a bunch of cool new things. One thing that's really different, I think, from Redcon to most of the other supplement companies is that we have a dev team. We have 6 people on the dev team. They're creating custom stuff on a daily basis, things that, to be honest with you, I go back and forth thinking about, should we be selling the software stuff that they're developing, because they have some stuff that they have done with Shopify that nobody else has done, and that would be able to be sold on the Shopify store for probably really big money. And obviously, it would be super cool to have no cost of goods in anything I'm selling. You know, doing a SaaS business would be, it's outside of anything I've ever done before. So because of some of the cool stuff they're doing that's really, really unique, it's definitely a constant evolution. And I think probably Ryan told you about, so we're creating a unique customer experience. So the site will be specifically tailored to the person, what they've purchased before, what pages they visit, which videos they've expressed interest in. So it'll be a totally custom experience based on the user. So we've been doing some really cool stuff with text messaging for people that, so we'll use the technology they're building to kind of create an AI where if Josh orders protein every 30 or so days, we'll start to set up text reminders that all he'll have to do is write back yes, and then it'll send his order for that month, where it'll make text suggestions based on what he's purchased in the past. And there's a whole slew of cool stuff that they're doing. So if you don't have the data, you can't do any of that. And from the most basic stuff of marketing to people on Facebook and Instagram, having user data tells you, who your customer, who you should be shooting for as your new customer. And then another big thing, although we don't do this that much, we've been really good about every order being profitable. So a lot of growth companies, this is a really weird thing, because a lot of growth companies don't make any money for sometimes many orders. They're focusing on the lifetime value of a customer, and it may be 8 purchases. Like Peloton is a great example. Peloton loses money, they don't only lose money.
Yeah.
And the idea is they're going to turn this corner at some point and then start being profitable, because the LTV of the customers is so big, because people stay on and they keep their memberships going. It's funny, when Ryan and I got invited to Palo Alto to the main Facebook building, One Hacker Way, and so they do it called a Disruptor Conference, where they invite disruptors in their category. So it's usually like 200 or so companies. We're very, very lucky to be invited. We're definitely the smallest company there. But Peloton was there, and they literally got up and everybody clapped because they were going to be profitable in 18 months. So they got up and they're like, they're like, yeah, good job. Each one of these companies gets up. Smile Direct Club, all these companies, they literally are getting, people are clapping because they're going to be profitable in the near future. So for us, every order has to be profitable. So we don't focus on that as much. We obviously focus a lot on the lifetime value of a customer, but we don't spend up to acquire a customer knowing that, or hoping that one day that customer is going to buy 6 times and going to be profitable. Every single order has to be profitable, or else we don't do it.
You made a comment around building a SaaS product for potentially for sale, because you built something that was useful for yourself. I mean, I kind of think about that in one, from the major inspiration is just Amazon, obviously them building things like AWS, but then even in our space, you have the Hut Group, which I made a video on around that owns My Protein, but they also have white labeled and sold one of their products from the customer experience side called Ingenuity, where they have massive customers like I think Walgreens and Clorox and that are running their direct consumer sites. So there's a kind of all encompassing they do. But I was kind of thinking about that because I think that is when you get a product that is so useful to yourself, you think to yourself, well, you're already working on things that are past that point. So for you then to utilize that as a revenue creator, it makes sense because you can sell that to other people and you're not really scared that they're going to catch up to you because you're already working on other things. It's kind of always a constant innovation. They're just innovating to parity, I guess, and you're profiting off of that over somebody else. But I was also thinking about the profitability standpoint. We talked about Peloton, and this is kind of where the idea around the data came from. And I guess the difference between, Peloton and you guys is that you're selling a consumer packaged good where it's like a physical good. Now, obviously, Peloton has the bike, which is physical, but their subscription is where they make the majority of their money. So they're trying, hey, how do we get as many people into the system as possible? It's kind of like Uber or some of these. The more scale you get in, the better chance you have at this. So it's a little bit different, but it's funny to think, because we always think in the sense of like physical goods, and like you can't run a business for very long if you continue to lose money on selling a physical good, because you have to keep buying more goods, and then you're always in this like crazy cash cycle. And when you hear tech companies or you hear those things, it's hard to detach yourself from the thought patterns we have in terms of like a physical good, because we're so used to like, we had to pay $8 for this. We need to make money from it because we got to buy another $8 thing and another $8 thing. And it's like, it's constant. Where like, they're just putting out a technology that they put out a long time ago, and they're just trying to, create revenue off of that.
A lot of those companies too raise money. And that's one big thing is, obviously I didn't raise any money. This is all 100% me. So I don't even have lines of credit or anything. So I know a lot of those guys raise huge seed money, and they say, okay, what's our burn rate of this money? I can burn for this long till I need to be profitable. And for, like you were mentioning, if you need to continue buying more inventory because the demand's higher and you're losing money as you're building, it's obviously you need to be well financed to even consider that. And I certainly am not.
Let's go back to Walmart for a second. I find this super interesting because many brands, Iovate, for instance, creates a separate line, right, for Walmart. Kind of, we talked about that. Or Pro Subs create a separate formula. You guys are not. And that's not, I guess that hasn't been the popular choice in the past. And you guys are able to go into Walmart with the Total War formula that we see today. If you were not a $100 million brand prior to Walmart, how big is that deal for you guys in your future?
Pretty big, I think. Pretty big. Walmart is a huge player, obviously, but also I think you're getting in front of a lot more people. That's the big thing. Getting in front of a ton more people. You have the ability to scale quickly. I think Walmart, as Josh mentioned, people are honestly kind of channel agnostic now. They're going to buy wherever it's easiest for them, and so a lot of people probably these days want to stop as few places as possible as well. So you walk into Walmart to buy your groceries, being there at Walmart where somebody is buying their groceries or vacuum cleaner or whatever, to have the product there in front of them, I think is a really, really big deal. And I think back in the day, if you would have asked me when Redcon1 started, do I foresee Redcon1 to be in Walmart, I would have told you definitely not. Because I would think in my head, like, that means you're not cool. Like, that's not a cool move. But I think that that things are really, truly changing at this point. And that I think that while Walmart still might not be cool, I think that more and more brands are going to as we do well, knock on wood, as we do very well there, I think more and more people are going to pursue that, and I know that they are pursuing it. That is one of the biggest growth portions of the Walmart business. The guy that we deal with over there, his name is Matt Musgrave, is like a stud over there, because he's one of the only departments, right, that has significant like double-digit growth. That doesn't really happen at Walmart anymore. So I know when the people over there look at him like he's the rock star, because he created significant growth, and I think it'll continue to grow. I think that they'll refocus, because the GNCs of the world, unfortunately, things aren't looking as bright, as we've said. By the way, I'm 100% for GNC getting on board. I think the competition is good for everybody, and they were a really good partner, and it seems like they're refocusing. We made the decision to continue doing business with GNC. It's a very difficult, weird place to be, because now they have secured money, and we changed our terms with them, right? So it was a tough decision, because it felt like, well, he owes me. Imagine if the person, he had $1.4 million. Last thing you're going to do is go back into business with them. But for us, it was like, I don't not want to be in the whatever, how many they're going to 2,500 or whatever they're going to pare it down to locations. I don't want Redcon1 not to be there. So we figured out a way to continue working together, and I'm rooting for them, man. I think that people are going to be surprised that they're going to come out of this bankruptcy this year and probably be a significantly stronger company for getting rid of all these bad locations.
I would say I want to agree with you. I think my thing is they're notorious for over promising and under delivering. I think they have a lot of holes in their business that they've not addressed at all within their like restructuring plan or anything. But that's, I think just by subtracting a lot of the bad locations and stuff, things are going to look better. But it's kind of like when you get to that point, then where do you springboard from there is kind of always the question for GNC, because they've kind of not made the right decisions from like a technology standpoint or anything to create a true like harmonized or frictionless type of experience. It's more of like they think about the store and then they now all of a sudden are trying to think about digital, but it's not like they're thinking about them together. So, I mean, I think positive towards them being a part of the industry, because I think any time we lose like a specialty retailer, it softens the core of the industry in terms of it doesn't give somebody that physical store to go to find those very, very special products across the country, if there's not a Joe's supplement shop down the street. So for us to lose that completely would be detrimental in the short term. Long term, digital and everything, that's going to be where it goes, so it doesn't matter. But I think in the short term, we need to have them be a part of our ecosystem for the industry to continue to progress where it's at and have an option for customers. But yeah, we'll kind of see. I mean, I think that's still up in the air right now in terms of like where that all goes and it's still not technically sold yet. So it's kind of like, where does it go? But I mean, that's probably been one of the most interesting pieces of news, at least from our industry, from like the retail side, is just watching that over the last 6 months, try to figure out where does it go from here? Because people like you and other brands in the industry are trying to figure out, how do we use this big retailer again? How strong are they going to be? Is it worth partnering with them? Are they still going to be a great partner? Because to your point, a lot of people had money tied up in that retailer for a long time, and now they're looking at it and saying, hey, they used to be 8,000 stores, now they're going to be 4,000 stores. Should we have given them the same terms or the same pricing or the same, they're a different retailer now. They're worth, the value of them are different.
No, I think you bring up, so like we talked about Walmart. Walmart will never carry the assortment of Redcon products that GNC does. So you bring up a good point. If you want, so for Walmart, if we get 12 SKUs in there, that'll be a miracle. That'll be unbelievable and crazy. At GNC, we probably have 50 SKUs. So it's, I don't even know how many when you include the flavors and everything. We got tons and tons and tons. So yeah, and that's by the way, that's one of the things I do tell retailers. So when somebody hits us up, because I'm sure mom and pop stores will hear Redcons and Walmart and be mad. They're like, well, what about us? The thing I always tell them is, look, man, they're going to have such a limited selection that if they fall in love with Redcon at Walmart, they're going to want to see where else can they buy, the other products that they can't get. Like you say they love Halo, right? You can't get Halo at Walmart, and it's not going to be there. So if you want that or Boomstick or whatever, you're going to have to go to another location or buy it online. And then the other thing is, for me, there's always a nostalgia part. Like when Flex Magazine went away, it doesn't change anything for me. It doesn't hurt our business really, but I was sad. I was sad to see it go. It feels like the end of an era. So GNC, I would go into GNC as a kid and look at all the Muscle Tech products and all that, how much I could increase my bench press if I only had the $70 for the Cedar Bowling, right? So, I remember that stuff, and if it was gone, like totally gone, it would make me sad, just like we were really, really excited when the products were on shelf. Me and Eric went there to take pictures of the products being on the shelf. We were so excited. So, I'd hate to see anything like that. I would hate to see them leave for multiple reasons, right?
Aaron, a lot of times people start a business someday to sell that business. And we've had a kind of soft conversations about this in the past. A lot of people thought you were going to sell a year ago, almost 2 years ago, just because how quickly you were growing. They thought you were going to get out and do something else. Is the end goal for you and Eric to eventually sell Redcon1 and move on to something else?
Yes. And I can say that with all, being transparent and honest, because that's just the way shit goes, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you built something really cool. There's right now, it's funny because people will be probably surprised to hear this, but I personally am making way less money than I made a few years ago, because you have to constantly reinvest into the business as it grows. So to actually to make any kind of really big money to have like a liquidity event. You need to have something like that to happen. So that is the plan. That being said, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. So it's like me and Eric are having of course, there's a lot of stress. That's just how it goes. But if I were to sell today, I'll be starting something else that will be causing me just as much stress. So, maybe more stress. Mm-hmm. So there's no urgency to sell. And I mean, we love what we do. I love Redcon. We love the culture we're building. Love being around the people. Now we have the gym. So every day I get to leave here to go to the Redcon1 gym, which is, probably the best gym I've ever been to in my life, which is so crazy to say that I own the best gym I've ever been to. But the gym is we got a bunch of new equipment recently that kind of like took it over the top. The coolest gym I've ever been to will be in Kuwait. We went to Oxygen Gym in Kuwait, but there's cool. no girls there, and it's like a very different atmosphere. No music. It's like weird, but it's incredible. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. When will be more of like up in the air where like I can't imagine. That's the thing, right? You mentioned because we're growing so fast. That's another when you think about that, you don't want to sell right when you're going like crazy up, right? You also don't want to sell when you peak and start going the other direction. So right now we're growing so fast, and we have like the MRE RTD coming out in September. Which we have commitments from everybody. I mean, that could be $100 million product right there, an incremental $100 million increase, like almost immediately. So to think about doing it, put it this way, it's not on my mind right now, So.
What about Josh brought up an interesting point in the last podcast, or 2 podcasts ago. What about Redcon acquiring another company like Josh's favorite company to talk about, BSN, because Eric's got roots there, and that was his baby. Is there any talks on the table of you guys maybe building out your portfolio through acquisition?
No, we haven't really thought about that. Not that that's impossible. I know we've talked in the past, Eric and I, about acquiring a manufacturing facility because obviously that would vertically integrate. Mm-hmm. Eric is super. So I'm not a handy guy. Eric is like fucking Mr. Fix-It. He can build engines. He loves the equipment. He likes the idea of physically making things. That would be something that would be really cool. Although that's not something that's like happening right now. But it would be interesting. We did get approached about doing marketing for other supplement companies, which was an interesting thought. But we also have kind of put that on. So the one thing that I've learned owning so many companies at one time, because at one point I owned the CT Fletcher company, I owned Dynamic Muscle with Kai Green, I owned Run Everything Labs with Dana and Rob, and then obviously Redcon all at the same time. And the one thing that I've noticed is that you just cannot use the same team for multiple things. You need to get whole new teams if you really want to do a good job, because it always comes down to like, well, somebody has a great idea. Oh, that idea is awesome. So who should get the idea, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I have found that taking the people we have here and diverting their attention to anything else, including my attention to anything else, always ends up bad. It's just not a thing that I've been able to accomplish where we've done really awesome on, like, for example, like with Kai on Dynamic Muscle, I gave him his shares back for nothing. I gave him his shares, the IP, the inventory. I just gave it to him and said, here, you can have it all, because I like him so much as a person. And I knew that we weren't doing as good a job as we could do. And Redcon was growing so fast. I basically just said, look, man, I'm not doing the service for you that I could. And I don't feel right about making money off this. And so I gave it to him. But if Dynamic Muscle was all we had to do, dude, we'd be crushing it. Kai would be doing unbelievable. And so that has taught me a lesson. But it is a very interesting idea to do that for, like, and the companies that we're talking about were much bigger than Redcon, or legacy companies that have been around for a long time. And so the idea sounds really appealing because they have no direct to consumer, and it would be really easy, I think, to scale them up quick in a way that would blow their minds. Mm-hmm. But it's like one of those things, man, like, it's real tempting to do a lot of different things, but it's very difficult to do them all well.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were mentioning about the possible, services side of things, it reminded me of the Genius brand. It's an Amazon brand, but Robert Oliver, he still runs Amazon for brands in the industry, even though he owns one as well. It's because he's just so good at it that it makes sense if people are really soft in that area. he can run that for them. And it's probably a little bit different than some of the stuff you were talking about. He could probably focus those things pretty easily, but I think it is an idea, because going back to that SaaS product at the beginning, the idea is like when you start to create core competencies or just capabilities that are so much stronger than somebody else, especially in an industry that sometimes lacks those things, you then find some easy, like low-hanging fruit. But to your point, it's like the opportunity cost is that if you lose focus, do you end up losing more by having your team members do something else? That's always kind of like that question to answer, because there's so many opportunities. I think any entrepreneur that's been doing it for long enough knows that you have so many things getting thrown at you for opportunities. It's a matter of like, can you say no more than you could say yes? I know that I struggle with that. I know that Ryan does too, and I'm sure you do, Aaron, as well. It's kind of like you want to say yes because you feel so confident in yourself that you can make it happen, but then you realize like you're not Superman. You can't do it all.
Yeah, I've had too many times that I've said yes and then been like, damn it, I shouldn't be doing this, or even like with the Kaya example, where it's like, man, like I know I could do really good, but we're not, and yeah, it's definitely, I get a lot of things that like the SaaS thing I'm really interested in, but I think of our dev team is doing so many things for Redcon1. I feel like would it make Redcon1 a whole lot less exciting for them if I said, hey, let's create digital products that we can sell and you guys can make money selling. I don't know if that I feel like the concern on my end is just like, well, that sounds maybe more exciting to those guys, and I don't want to create it where it's like, the fun project is not Redcon, but yeah, it's definitely a thing where you definitely need to be able to say no, and I've gotten a lot better at saying no in general. Yeah. For me, I would say one of my weaknesses is that I'm too soft with most things, with people, and just in general, I'm pretty much a softie. So it's not in my nature to say no if somebody asks also, so it makes it even more difficult.
Yeah,
so I have Eduardo.
You're going to get a bunch of texts and phone calls now, Aaron. You realize that. Your email's going to blow up.
Send it to Eduardo.
Yes. I don't want to wrap up the episode without talking about something that Josh and I did a whole episode on cause marketing or using your platform for good. And Redcon has done a phenomenal job this year. You're again, a very transparent, which I love about you and your social channels. Like you open up the curtains and say, hey, this is who I am. Here's my wife. Here's my kids. And also like the giving that you guys do to Simplify. But now you guys took it a step further. And we'd be doing a disservice not to mention the Redcon1 Foundation, because I think that is an extremely cool thing that you guys are doing. I mean, it's very cool anytime a supplement brand uses their platform for good, whether it's writing a check, building a home, whatever it might be. But you guys now created an actual nonprofit organization to help military families in need. Was it an idea that just came about from like you and Darielle and the team because you've been giving so much, it only made sense to create a foundation?
That is definitely part of it. It's when we've been donating. Initially, Redcon1 started, and for years we've been donating to different charities on a monthly basis, and I really never talked about it. And it's funny. I always, for some reason, it's kind of like the same thing. I try not to. You see my life, right? And you like the Amazon number. Posting that was a difficult decision because I don't want to come off as bragging, right? And that's the only reason I really even posted that number, was not to show the number we're doing, but to tell the story of the fact that that we turned off $300,000 a month in revenue in the hopes of bringing in more in the future, and how difficult the decision was to turn away all these Amazon retailers who were ready to throw money at us, especially when we're telling them that we're going to stop. And then we were really, you're inundated with offers, like people like the gentleman that does the Genius brand, guys like that say, hey, well, don't stop, just work with me. I'll give you $1 million today. And we had a lot of offers like that, where it's very difficult to turn down. But we bet on ourselves, and obviously, as I posted, we did $1 million last month on Amazon from zero 18 months before, because other people were selling and not us. So I always thought, like, if you're giving money and you're telling people about it, then it kind of takes away some of the value of doing it. And of all people, it's funny, the rabbi the Redcon1 rabbi who comes here, hourly, I told him that, and we were talking about giving and how, he was saying that it's, obviously also we give to his Chabad, his synagogue as well. But he was saying that it's unique, that all the amount of different things we're doing. And I told him that, I don't really talk about it. And he said that that's bad. He said, that's bad. And I was like, why is it bad? And he said, well, because by giving and making it public, you do two things. You get people to want to participate more. They want to donate or they want to buy a product because they know that some of that money is going to something good, right? And the other thing is that it inspires other people in the industry to replicate this. We hear all the time that this guy's copying you, that guy's copying you. It doesn't even faze me because it's happened so often where people say, oh, look at this guy, whatever company copying. So I'm like, well, people do copy a lot. So maybe if we do something positive and we let people know that other companies will copy it, because that's something that I would want them to copy. So as soon as we did that and started telling people about it and posting the checks and showing what we're doing, we definitely got a lot more support. And a lot of people started saying, that's why I love this company. Yeah, they make great supplements. Yeah, we have good deals or whatever. But the fact that they're giving back, that's really important. And so we started seeing that. And because we were giving more money, I started doing more research into a lot of the charities. Now, I don't want to. There's a lot of good charities we worked with. So I'm about to say something bad, but I don't want to paint all those guys with the same brush. But one of them in particular, very little of the money actually goes to the guys that we're thinking we're helping, and a large majority of it is going to administrative fees and salaries and other stuff that doesn't have to do with actually helping people. And that kind of got us thinking, Darielle and me and everybody here thinking like, well, if we were going to do a charity, we would give every dollar away. There would be $0 for administrative fees, So when we started researching that, we decided to get it on a board and like make it for real. And they do real meetings with minutes and it's like a real thing. This meeting's into session. It's and I'm not even in the meeting, so I'm not on the board, which is a decision we made. So it removes me out of the equation. Darielle is on the board, and then the Honorable Rob Wilkins, my good buddy, who is people, if they're bodybuilding fans, probably would have seen him because he was with Joe and Ben Weider everywhere. So wherever Ben Weider went, Rob went as well, and he was the highest enlisted man in the Air Force before retiring, and now basically focuses all his time and effort on veteran affairs, helping veterans. So we got him to be the president, and the only salary that comes out is his very modest salary for Rob. Every other dollar, with the exception of that little bit that he gets to run it and for his flights and stuff to come down here, every dollar is going to the actual charities. And so our idea was, when you give money to a charity, you really, even if they're giving all of it, you really don't know exactly what you're doing. And so the plan was to help, at least initially, to help one military family a month. And so because of COVID, it slowed everything down quite a bit, finding the right person, having somebody that's willing to have a camera crew go to them during this time, or even being filmed at all. A lot of these guys or girls don't want to be filmed at all, especially in the special forces community. A lot of them are very uncomfortable being on camera at all, even if they're retired. Like some of the guys that I'm very close with have no pictures of themselves for years. For operational security, they would tell the guys, Tier 1 guys, SEAL Team 6 guys, or Delta Force guys, don't take pictures. They didn't even take pictures of their own family. So to go from that to being in front of a camera talking about how you need help, it's not that easy to find somebody. So we end up finding Courtney Brown and his family, a guy, military, a Marine, a combat veteran Marine who is literally a war hero, who came back home, had a tough time finding a job and transitioning. When he did find a job, COVID happened after buying his new house. He got fired or let go, and then caught COVID. And so he had, like, basically anything bad can happen to you. This guy, unfortunately, did. He has 2 little kids and a wife, a new house that he can't afford to pay for anymore. And so we were able to pay 6 months of his mortgage for him to give him some breathing room to get back on his feet. And then more recently, one of the more secretive commands, these guys are gone all the time. And so they're not single moms, but if the guys are gone 300 days of the year, right, it's almost like a large part of the time they are. So we decided to help buy school supplies for hundreds of families that are at this place. And it's one less thing that these moms have to deal with for the school season with all the craziness going on. So, we're trying to do stuff like that that make actual differences that we're able to video and show. So when people see the video of Courtney Brown, and how it's changed his life, my hope is that they want to participate in some way, whether it's a donation or buying a supplement that they wouldn't have bought otherwise, giving a new flavor a chance because they know that it's going to, at least part of it is going to help people.
Right.
Yeah, I think with one of the biggest points I think on that episode that Ryan and I talked about was that there's probably, a good amount of people in our industry that are doing really charitable things, great things, but they're not necessarily talking about it, or if their brand is purpose driven or have some aspect of charitable activities, they're not storytelling enough to the point where people learn about it. And I think that that's doing it a disservice, because if somebody doesn't know, your ultimate purpose and goal in this foundation or whatever, then they don't know how to help you. They don't know how to support that if they are aligned with you. And I think that it's an important thing in today's world, I think, to find that balance of showing your brag, because there's so much noise. There's so much like things that are happening on a day-to-day basis that we get messaged on. It's like, you need to, put your stake in the ground and say, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm doing. So then somebody can reference that when they are looking for a product or they're looking to support a cause or whatever. There's just so many things from a daily messaging that you end up losing track of things if you're not talking about it, and you just assume somebody's not doing it. I think you just default to the fill in the gaps of somebody's not doing something. So I think that, Ryan and I came from the Midwest. I mean, we were taught not to talk about any of those things, but I don't necessarily think that that's the right way to do it now in 2020. I think you have to show some of that to people, because if not, they're going to default to just thinking you're not doing something. And that's not what you want. To your point around following the leader, I mean, I would love if more people would follow the leader on that idea, or, sustainable packaging or sourcing, or, all these ideas that eventually will move the industry or the world forward. It's like, yeah, copy that stuff. Let me follow the leader, and then you guys can copy me on that stuff. So I hope people will look at this and go, I would love to finally create a foundation, or, just some 501, C3 or whatever, they're, those types of situations where they create those elements within their business. I hope they look at you guys and go, wow, maybe I can aspire to be some fraction of that.
I hope they beat us. I hope they give away more and do bigger things. I mean, that's really that's the only time I'll ever want anybody to.
I was going to say, Aaron does not say those words very often.
but in this case, man, I hope somebody one-ups us, and I hope somebody gives a year's mortgage to somebody who needs it, or do something bigger. I mean, that's truly, my hope. I think that the industry, two things the industry needs is more good deeds, more people doing good things, and then also we need some help politically. I think we need, I have said this before, maybe it's something that we'll explore in the future, is we have nobody lobbying for us. The sports supplement industry has nobody. Nobody's backing us up, and I think that that's something that needs to change as well. Because all these companies, if we got together a handful, even a dozen or so companies that kicked in a little money, you could make a big difference and have somebody defending us. Because you see the NIC stuff. You guys have seen that? How ingredients are just anything can happen. So when one gets knocked off like that, and they're starting being, if hypothetically, if that ingredient, which is obviously a harmless ingredient, if that becomes illegal or gets banned or whatever, where does it go from there? I just think that we need somebody, telling industry and vocally. So those are the two things if we can do anything in 2020 that's positive for the industry, those would be two great things.
Love it. Well, we'll wrap this episode up here. I'm excited. Josh, final takeaway. What are you excited about most about Redcon for this year, Josh? Because I'll start and say I'm excited to see this Black Friday sale this year, because we're not far away. We literally are not far away. People lost their shit last year on your sale, Aaron.
We're that's planned.
Oh, I know. I'm excited about this because, if you thought last year was crazy, I mean, people are gonna lose their shit again.
Gotta go bigger.
Do people want to see the second video, the sequel? Was that sequel that I did for everyone? I think that was probably one of the most the videos I got the most positive kind of things from the industry, where people really appreciated just the openness that you had on that video on my channel, just around just the stuff that you were doing. I think it really helped a lot of people understand what they needed to do to step up their game, which, that was kind of the point of it, was that hopefully people can look at you guys and say, wow, this is how they're doing this, and we need to step up our game, and this, all the tides rise and the ships go up with it type of a situation, if we could think more nimbly. I know for me, I'm interested in the MRE RTD, awesome. And I'm not a product guy, but I think that's a category that I pay a ton of attention to. In it, you guys have a little bit of a differentiation in there, and I think that you guys are doing things a bunch of different ways that, and I'll say some that I like, some that I don't like. So I want to see how it is in market. I think for me as a watcher of consumer behavior, I want to kind of see what happens. So I'm excited when you guys launch that to see what happens.
Me too. I mean, I'm probably the Black Friday thing I look for. I mean, that's like my birthday. I mean, Black Friday, when the site goes live, we do it on Thanksgiving, usually at like 7 or whatever. When it goes live, it is very, very exciting. Like the whole thing, it's like literally something that I look forward to all year long and think about how awesome it's going to be. And, we all pack the packages together and everything, which is really cool. Even a lot of my marketing people don't love that as much as me. I love getting there and packing the packages and having Asher work and Darielle work. And I think it's really neat team building, because obviously you build teams during fun stuff, but you can really build a stronger team going through adversity. And the amount of packages is pretty staggering when it comes out, and you got your shift, you have to finish the stack of labels 6 feet high. The MRE RTD definitely tops it for me. It's been over a year long project, and I'm sure Eric has lost hair over it, because I'm constantly harassing him for what's next, what's going to happen, why is it taking so long? Because he's really spearheaded the entire project. But man, they are so freaking good. You guys, I don't think either one of you tried the final samples.
I haven't tried the final. I tried the initials, and those were good.
So these are, man, they did. They were great before, but now they're really unbelievable. And so I'm super excited, because it is a big category that is really, really empty. I mean, there's not because a lot of people say, when are you doing an energy drink? When are you doing an energy drink? And man, that's super competitive. You're playing with the big boys, and not that we couldn't do it or we wouldn't do it well, but it's like, when there's so much white space in another drink category, why try to compete with monsters? Monster, literally. People that are very entrenched and have tremendous marketing budgets. And, I look at Jack Owak, he's got another hot girl with 10 million followers every day he's hiring onto the team. And this guy is, he must have fucking 1,000 of them now. It's incredible. Any girl that I see at the blue check, if I ever look, they're always with Bang now. Yeah. Every one of them. Every one of them. So the budget he's spending on the girls has got to be in the millions a month right now on his girl influencers. I'm not even exaggerating. I literally think he's in the millions a month on his advertising, on his girls. So why compete against that? So I think that it's going to be really, really exciting. I know the product was great. Obviously, not having whey protein in a protein drink makes it unique. Having animal-based protein, it's going to be very different, and I think it's going to be huge, man. I think it's going to be huge. So that's I'm most excited about.
It's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be cool, because, Josh and I have talked about, you have Premier, you have Saddle Sport in that category, and other than that, it's boring. It's been the same way for years and years and years, and to your point, everyone's like, hey, we got to do an energy drink. It's like, okay, why? But you found white space. I'm excited for it. I know Josh is excited for it. And we'll have to bring it back on, I think, after the launch and discuss. I think it'll be interesting to, what did you learn, the learning experience, the positives, negatives, because no doubt there's going to be bumps in the road, most likely, but there's also probably going to be a lot of highs. So, Aaron, we definitely appreciate you coming on, sharing your insight into business, into everything that we talked about, being our first guest. We're no longer virgins, Josh. Josh is no longer a virgin. This is a big episode. This is really big.
Well, I'm excited to been here and pop your cherry, Josh.